Okay, good evening.
Wait a minute.
How you doing, Linda? I'm Terry Murphy, the chair of the Charter and Rules Committee, the Ward 2 counselor. With me are committee members, Council President, Ward 7, Councilor Todd McGee, and Ward 5, Councilor Linda Bacon. And in our distinguished audience of counselors is Councilor at Large Michael Sullivan. And we have other distinguished people here, which we will bring up when we get into the other agendas. But first of all, I want to thank you for coming. I know it's end of summer, and we're trying to wrap things up here, and I'm just trying to clear a few files. So the first item on the agenda is a resident's petition to request the following non-binding question be placed on the ballot for the next general election, which would be November 5th. And it reads, should the City of Holyoke build 1 to 2 affordably funded new schools? Entertain a motion that we take that off the table.
Motion to take up?
All in favor? Aye. Okay, we do have one of the petitioners, one of the lead petitioners here. If we would be willing to allow
I'll make a
public
motion to
comment.
allow the public to comment.
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Yes, David? And if you just give me your name, David, obviously I have it, but for the record.
Okay, yeah, that sounds like it's on. Dave Yost of 20 Sydney Avenue. Well, my idea behind the petition is I'm a strong supporter of our schools. We were just out here an hour ago with the big crowd for the ready for school for the kindergarten and preschool. But I strongly feel this debt exclusion is the wrong way to go about it. It would more than double our debt. It would, we're the 8th poorest community in the Commonwealth, and we'd only get a 58% reimbursement, which really is unjust to me. So my idea was to make it clear that I support our schools, but I'm not in favor of doing it this way. And I guess what I also wanted to do is try and make it clear to people that's what they're voting on. They're voting on the debt exclusion, they're not saying whether or not, they're not necessarily saying whether or not they want new schools. I mean, I got about 40 people signed there. I probably talked to 100 or so altogether, and only one wasn't for schools. But the vast majority of people felt this wasn't a fair, equitable way to fund it. So, but now I appreciate. I spoke with Councilor Bacon, got some feedback from her. This may not be the best way to make clear or to make it more understandable to people. It may cause more confusion. So I'll defer to the committee to consider that. But my main objective is to make it, and I think we all can agree, want people to make sure they understand what they're voting on. They're voting on a debt exclusion, not necessarily on schools. And so I appreciate your decision on this.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Comments? Anyone? No? And again, I'll just make one quick comment, and one of my concerns was similar to Councilor Bacon's, is are we going to make this issue more confusing or less confusing? And that was a concern. My general instinct is to accept citizen petitions, and especially when they're non-binding, and put them on a ballot. That's just my general view. But I also recognize, as you recognize, that there potentially could be more confusion by doing this in both cases. One group might think doing this, in fact, votes for the debt exclusion, and the other one might think voting for the other one does not, or they have to vote for both. So I'm not quite sure which way I would go on this, but I will defer to either of McGee.
I think it is. It's a good idea. I know there's no R at the end of idea, but that's how I was taught. That's how I speak. But the real issue is it would be confusing. I think everyone will agree to that, because if you vote for this, you think you're voting for one school when really you're not voting for anything. And I'm not saying voters are uninformed or any of that thing. I think it just would lead to confusion. So therefore, to me, we already have a ballot question. Yes, it is for debt exclusion, but it is for 2 buildings. Whether or not you're in favor of 2 buildings or not, that's what you're voting on. And that's what the debt exclusion's for, 2 buildings. So that is clear. So to me, to put this on there, it does lead to, well, I'm going to vote for this, so we get one building, and that's what we're going to pay for. That's not what's going to happen, and therefore, I don't see this as a alternative or a way of dealing with the overall issue. To me, the overall issue, as I said in charter and rules and the full council, is 58%, 59%, whatever the total is a slap in the face to the city by the state. We did have Senator Humison try and help us. The state did not help us. So if we look at the history to all this, they put us in receivership. The state owns us. The state did the review of our buildings. They said our buildings were failing. The state did. I didn't. The city didn't. The state did. So the state 2 times now said, you need help. Then the state approved for the MSBA that we should have 2 schools because we're in that dire of a need, but yet they won't help us. So my response is we sue the state for failing our students. That's my response. So I don't want to confuse our voters, but my real push now is to sue the state for not providing us the proper funding we need to support our schools, which they already set the background. We're in need, and support us is my response.
Okay. Councilor Bacon?
So David did accurately describe the gist of the conversation that we had relative to this. And I would further note that even as recently as yesterday, there was one Facebook post that said one number of 75.8 million, and then another article that said 72 point something. So there's already confusion out there. And I think what I see is general agreement in the community that we do want new schools, but we want to make sure that we get the 80% reimbursement that we did when we did the high school renovation. And so if we can't succeed in getting the 80%, then there are a number of us who feel that the amount of debt, which would more than double our current debt in the city, would probably go so far as to push us into full city receivership. We're already in receivership for the schools. And so I agree with my colleagues that we need to have an extra funding stream that gets us to the 80%. I believe there are not the votes on the city council to vote for the bond when if you use the newest numbers released, it's only going to be 55% funded by the state. That percentage seems to be declining rather than increasing. And so, having said all that, I do, however, think that to put the 2 questions on would be to just add to the confusion. I kind of see this proposal from the citizens, and I totally agree with the spirit of it, as perhaps a next step. When we perhaps have to regroup and come up with perhaps a more common sense, realistic plan. Thank you.
Councilor Sullivan?
Yeah, I totally agree with what everybody said about the confusion. One thing I would like us all to be clear on, receivership for the schools was not a financial issue. And it shouldn't be linked with the city going into receivership. It's 2 very, very, very different pictures. Receivership for the schools was based on an academic problem, not a financial problem with the school system. The confusion, the real confusion around the debt exclusion, right, is that everybody's assumption is being based on by the time the first payments come due, that we will receive nothing additional from the state, nothing additional in the form of any other grants, that there'll be no property value increases, no constraints put forth by the executive branch of government here to do other things to make it more affordable and not utilize the full amount. Nothing says in the debt exclusion that we must use every dime, just that it's available. This is what the wording was given to us by the state as to what must be on there, right? But nowhere does it say that we have to use every dime of what's allowed. It's so that if nothing else transpires, this is what is needed to fully fund what is before us. And that's, to me, that's one of the most confusing things about the issue, and that's what we've got to get everybody focused on, and anything else beside that is gonna cloud the issue.
And we are now joined by our distinguished at-large counselor, Counselor McGivern. Since you always recognize me, I'm recognizing you back.
Thank you, Mr.
Almost as senior as the one standing here, but, so I think the.
Outside of Councilor McGee, I am the youngest person in this room on his side.
Jeez. He did say on this side, I heard that. So I think if either one of you would like to make a motion.
Motion would be to deny the request for a non-binding question?
And I'll second that.
Okay, motion is made and seconded. Any other comments? All in favor?
Without prejudice.
Without prejudice.
Without prejudice, yeah?
Okay. All right, all in favor of the motion?
Aye.
Opposed? 3-0. David? We appreciate your interest, we appreciate your input, and you know that we continue to get that input as we go forward, so, absolutely. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
What I'd like to do, if this is okay with everybody, since the second item on the agenda relates to a matter which I'm expecting people to come, but they have not arrived, I would recommend that the committee go to item 3, where we do
Motion to
have.
go out of order, item 3?
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, item 3 is ordered that there is hereby established a finance department. Said finance department is introduced by Councilor Roman. Since said finance department should be responsible for the fiscal and financial affairs of the city for the coordination and overall planning and supervision of all fiscal and financial activities of all city agencies. The finance department shall include the functions of assessing, auditing, collecting, purchasing, and treasury. I'd like to invite our distinguished department heads to come on in. And we are joined by Tony DeLude from the assessor's office, Tanya Dowiak. Am I getting that right? Well, give me that. Give me the pronunciation. Dowiak, okay. From the auditor's office, Katie Jakowski from the tax collector's office, and Sandy Smith from the treasurer's office. And I thank you all for taking the time to come here. This order has been sitting here for the last 18 months or so without any action, and I do think, one of the things I want to try to do is just make sure we deal with things, so, but I did want to invite you in. You are all, your departments are all part of this process, and certainly would welcome your thoughts and your comments, and if it's okay with the committee, I would prefer to take those first and then have questions to you after that, if that is okay. So I don't know if anyone would like to be the first one to start, but
Has there been any plan put forth for a?
Finance, we do have some meetings coming up for the next month, 4 months, in the mayor's office with all the finance team, all of our offices. Those are coming on Tuesdays at 3 o'clock for the next 4 months, so.
Do you guys have regular meetings, like, as a group,
I know,
department heads to?
I know Sandy, Katie have school department stuff that you can read on weekly, right? So, yeah, and the auditor also. Yep, yep.
But do you meet, you four, just say, as a group to discuss financial stuff, or?
We're in each other's offices all the time, so I talk to Sandy about certain things, talk to Katie, talk to Tanya, about certain things. And if it needs to be run by each of them, it's firsthand stuff that we would, give the courtesy to each other to ask and, figure out what we need to do about certain problems. So we have a good working relationship between the four of us right now. I can go down there anytime and we can talk and figure out what we need to do about certain things. So I mean, it's an open door for all 4 of our offices.
I was just getting this
Yeah.
started.
Yep. And I appreciate it. Council Bacon?
I'm wondering, will all 4 of you plus others be in this Tuesday meeting?
It's supposed to be,
Us purchasing, not all department heads.
no, just finance stuff. I know economic development,
Yeah.
maybe purchasing also,
And the chief of staff.
maybe law department also.
And who from the mayor's office will be there? Will the mayor be there?
He called the meetings, it's 3 o'clock meetings, so on Tuesdays for the next 4 months.
So are you expecting that the mayor will be there or his staff?
It's supposed to be the mayor.
It'll be the mayor.
Thanks.
So I'll ask a few questions, because as I read it, one of the things that I found interesting was that the finance department offered no coordination. The order offered no coordination as to, all right, you're gonna have a finance department, but there's no one that's really responsible to anyone else. Obviously, you're all responsible for your departments. And one of the things that I thought about the order was, well, if you're gonna have a finance department and everybody is under that umbrella, somebody's gotta be the one you report to. I'm assuming in most cases, since you're going to have Tuesday meetings with the mayor, that for the most part, from a financial perspective on issues, other than when you come to city council, you report to the mayor.
Yes.
Yes.
And I guess I'll ask, I mean, how is that
Unless you're
relationship?
elected. You don't, the auditor doesn't report to the mayor.
I'm gonna say on a day-to-day basis,
Yeah.
I do meet with the mayor and discuss situations with the mayor, but
Right,
I also
right.
report to city council as well.
Right.
Right,
But you're not a direct report.
And
I, as an
authority.
elected
official,
Right.
You're not either.
I don't have to report.
Right.
But out of respect, I do.
Right.
And if I'm called in
Right.
by the city council, I come.
and that would be what I would kind of expect as a standard procedure. I mean, obviously, to me, and the chief executive officer of the city is the person that eventually should have that umbrella, and not that he can order you to do something, but certainly would be a leader, should be a leader in terms of bringing you together when there are issues. All right, this is the problem, how are we gonna work through this problem and make sure that we're coordinating our efforts so that we're all on the same page? That seems to me to be a logical extension of the executive authority. And I'm interested, in the past, since you're talking now that you're gonna have these Tuesday meetings at 3 o'clock, in the past, how often did you meet with the mayor?
I mean, individually or?
No, as a group, as a group.
Corporation?
It's a group, not a lot.
Not a lot.
You know, not a lot of them.
Okay. And do you know what sparked this interest? I mean, it would appear to, again, on the outside, looking in, it would appear to me that you would want to be having somewhat regular meetings, just so you can kind of have a chance to voice your opinion. This is something that we need to work on, and we need to all get on the same page, as well as just keeping the mayor informed, as, you know, these are things that are coming up that I'm having a difficult time resolving on my own. I need assistance from the other departments, or I need assistance from you. So, I mean, that's what seems, I'm glad to see they're gonna happen, but it certainly would
Yeah,
appear
there's,
to me it should have happened
I
before.
mean, like Tanya is, you know, I'm Division of Local Services, she's Bureau of Local Accounts, so when there are problems that she needs to solve, she can go to DOR. I can go to DOR, ask them problems, you know, how to handle certain things. I mean, and we're scrutinized by the DOR also. I mean, they check our work annually to make sure that we're up to par. And it's the same for Tanya, treasurer, and, you know, Katie. I mean, we're, the Department of Revenue is really our financial boss.
Yeah,
you know.
right.
Yeah, so I mean, even though we're just starting the organized meetings, we definitely amongst ourselves have had
Yeah.
regular meetings with ourselves, but not, you know,
Yeah.
the mayor's office involved or anything.
And are there concerns that you have, two things, are there concerns that you have currently that are not being met? And second, do you see a benefit to having a finance department with somebody overseeing it.
Paying position?
Right now, I'm just saying someone overseeing it. I'm assuming if someone were to oversee it, and the other proposals that I've heard would certainly be getting paid.
I mean, I've heard before about a financial, team leader that would, it's a paid position or whatever, but, I mean, I don't know, just to get together and say what's going on, I mean, there's certain things we know every year we need to do, there's deadlines, certain deadlines, it's there.
Yep.
It's in black and white, every deadline we have, we know we need to do this, we know we need to do that, we need to get the bills out, we do warrants for excise, it's countless the time dates that we have for a full year,
Sandy, let me hear Sandy.
I'm just going to ask a question, and probably it's off the cuff. But with this ordinance, if you approved this, would this open the door for a CEO for the city?
Or what is it?
CFO.
CEO, CFO, one of those guys, Does that open the door for this ordinance to change the dramatic,
The order that's in front of us does not list any CFO.
Okay, so that's my concern, because I thought that this was to change the dynamics of the financial group in the city. So that, like you said, right now, the auditor answers to the city council and the mayor. The treasurer is elected, pretty much answers to the people in the city council. He answers.
I'm
Katie
answering to the
answers.
city
So
council.
if this was to be put forth, could we have somebody that was, I don't know, town manager? Does that open the door up for a town manager as opposed to?
Now we're back to charter change.
Yeah.
Well, and that's what I'm asking.
I mean, at this point, I have no intention to
Okay.
ask for a charter
I'm just-
change.
I'm
I
just curious.
My goal was to get your input in terms of what works and what doesn't work, and are there ideas that you might, and I said it without an R, but I gotta
See,
tell
I
you, way
told
back.
you, I
did
told
a
you.
seminar in 1992 in Ohio, and somebody said to me, "What are you talking about?" And I said, "What do you mean?" And they said, "What is an idea?" I said, "What do you mean, what is an idea?" So I know what you mean. So that's all, my goal here was to get you here, because I think you've got input, and you should have input on these kind of issues
Right.
up front, not in the
Right.
back.
Right, and we do. We work great as a team.
Yeah.
But down the road, if this is something that you are thinking about, then, maybe we'd be open for that type of a suggestion.
Yeah. At this point, I certainly am not
Okay.
looking at that. I would be very hesitant to bring in another high-paying position to oversee people that are doing their job.
Right.
Councilor Bacon?
Thank you. So I was wondering about, as this group comes together, would you see yourselves working on such things as the audit report and the recommendation out of the auditor's report, and how those would be resolved in these working weekly meetings, so we could get rid of those?
So I'm going to answer
Questions?
that, if you don't mind.
Sure.
So, and I actually just sent, as a communication, the audit for fiscal year 18, so you will be receiving that at the next meeting. But everybody does have input to the audit, and they also have input to all of our bond sales. Like, we had a meeting today, when they sell our bonds, everybody has their piece. There's debt, there's the mayor's piece, there's the assessor's piece, so all of that is included, and we work together every day. So, of course, we need input from people for our audit, because it affects all different departments. And I can't say how Sandy is going to rectify a situation. I could offer suggestions, and we work together every day, same with every other department. But of course, I need their input, because it has to, the structure has to work, and the systems and processes put in place, they have to agree with, because it impacts their office.
Right, so would you see the working group, as you're coming together each week, would be discussing findings from the audit, and then how each office would proceed to try to eliminate those findings in the next
Absolutely.
audit? Because it sounds like there's a lot more communication between all the departments than there used to be. And it seems that if you were coming together weekly, you could probably eliminate a lot of those negative findings. I was able to skim it quickly, but not
Oh,
read
that's
it
fine.
thoroughly. You know, and, you know, you don't like to see things showing up 2 and 3 times. And it seems like if you're all in the room together, that could be eliminated.
I also,
Trend.
myself, I feel like we spend a lot of time in meetings, and a lot of times it doesn't take all of us to solve an issue. It might be me and Sandy, it might be me and Kate, it might be me and Tony. So for us just to be able to meet together and settle something quickly and be able to move forward into our day, that's fine. I'm not opposed to meeting at all. I would maybe once a month or so. I don't feel like it needs to happen on a weekly
If
basis,
it's serving
maybe.
a purpose.
Certain times, yes. I mean, certain times you might want to meet every week, like during the audit or some other situations. I'm not sure what, but to me, I don't want to meet every week to discuss the same things over and over.
Right.
And not have the time to actually put
Do the
action
thing in
in place
between.
that we need
Right.
to, you know, the things we need to do.
Right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Anyone? Councilor McGibbon?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think, I'm not sure what the maker of the order and what the maker of the order not being here was really trying to accomplish here. And I think the conversation shows confusion that's existed for a long time over not just these 4 individual department heads, but also over our mayor and the charter. At least it's confusion that I think is, it's self-generated because of the individual appointments, the way we appoint people within the city and the way people are elected. And I thought we accomplished a lot a handful of years ago when we tweaked an ordinance, because we recognized the mayor, the charter, and the voters recognized the mayor, not just as the chief executive officer of the city, but as the chief financial officer. The only person who can appropriate money in the city is the mayor. Can he do it by himself? No. The mayor needs the city council to approve an appropriation, whether it's through the budget process or through appropriation through a transfer process. The mayor needs each of these individuals to accomplish the task of overseeing the budget and overseeing the finances of the city. Up until Tanya, the auditor was very independent because the auditor was appointed by the city council, but it was off a civil service list and had autonomy once the auditor was appointed. Tommy Gaheen, Brian Smith, throughout the years had full autonomy. We no longer have the civil service auditor. We talked about this right before we appointed Tanya, where, we may want to look at that and make sure that we have the correct, not controls, but the correct necessary language, as to how the auditor department is overseen. Our appointment has 13 city councilors. We don't oversee anybody, but we do appoint people to key positions. Katie's position, there was issues with the person who held that position in prior years, and the mayor got involved in that, and that's when we tweaked the ordinance to give the mayor, whoever the mayor is, an avenue of how to get involved with personnel issues. Sandy's right, she's an elected official. Our charter has got the treasurer as an elected official in the finance area for a very important reason, because it's a checks and balance that's built in. The charter is all about checks and balance. But when it comes to the day-to-day operations of the city, it's the mayor who runs the city. Understanding that he needs input from each of these individuals and understanding he needs input from the city council. Now, we can't dictate what mayors in what style or how they're going to, operate. I mean, this discussion deserves the mayor or someone to be here from the mayor's office, because I think that's the key as to how Alex, and right now, but how the mayor sees this operates. Does it operate? We can't afford to hire a chief financial officer and pay the mayor the same salary. If you want to hire a chief financial officer and go to that system, that's fine. Make the mayor non-paying and ceremonial, and the city council can be the board of directors. I'll stop there because that's not an editorial comment that I'm pushing for, but that is another option. That's not what this order was saying, and I know that's not what the mayor wants. But that's the key, and I think the cooperation amongst, we have 4, wonderful individuals in terms of our finance, areas. And I think their cooperation is, as Tony said, is the key, is working together and trying to solve things together. Is it perfect? No, but it also provides checks and balances to where a strong mayor cannot take over and do things without a check and balance of what is done, especially when it comes to city finances. So I don't know what the maker of the order is trying to accomplish here. I think the conversation would say it's been complied with, and, if the mayor wants to propose something, good for him.
Let me make an apology here because I saw my agenda and I thought I was reading the entire thing. However, in my antiquity, I'm making more mistakes. So the actual maker of the order expanding, because this did not get on the agenda and I'm not quite sure why, but the finance department shall be managed by a chief financial officer who will be responsible to and appointed by the mayor, subject to the approval of the city council, for a term of no less than 3 years. The chief financial officer may serve ex officio as the auditor or treasurer, provided, however, that no director shall serve ex officio as both auditor and treasurer. So he did indicate, and I'm not quite sure how that did not get on the agenda.
And I'll
why I didn't
rephrase my
recognize
last sentence. The order shouldn't be complied with, the order should be denied.
it. And I'm with you on that.
I'm not hearing any more discussion at the moment. I would actually offer a motion that I make a motion to deny.
Second.
Motion is made and seconded. Any other comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And I apologize for that. I thought I had the agenda listed and then, yeah.
You
yeah.
did.
And thank you all for coming, and
It's a good discussion,
we
though.
appreciate, and we would love to get updates on what's going on at your meetings on Tuesday, just if there's,
Write it in your diary.
thank you. Item, want to go item 4 and get that over? I don't think.
The NGO number 2.
Okay, let's go to item 2 then. All right, if that's okay.
Going to take up item 2.
Second?
All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Item 2, introduced by Councilor Todd McGee, ordered that the newly formed charter group look into the pros and cons of combining the personnel department with the school department, HG&E, and other personnel offices in the city into one centralized human resource division.
Oh, that's from 2012.
Motion. I'll just do a motion to table.
Okay, motion has been
Second.
made to table. And let me,
And I-
if I can just make a point before we get there, I mean, I did ask that all of the personnel departments be invited, and I thought we were gonna get people coming.
Well, they came once before, to be fair. They did come once before. The reason we tabled it is, at the time, we knew the person who was our personnel director was leaving.
Right.
So they said, wait for the new person to be hired, and we can look at it again with the whole group, and that would be Hector. So I'd like to see Hector's take on it. I know he's always looking for help in his office. Maybe we're not combining it to one centralized, but maybe there's ways they can work with each other to help if there's a shortfall in offices. And I know there's legalities on school department versus city type rules. I get that, just looking to see if he can find ways to make it easier, because, we always can't keep adding to the budget personnel. We have to, come up with creative ideas to help each other. So table it, have Hector come in. I don't think he was invited. Or was he?
Yeah, he was.
I'll follow up with him.
Yeah.
And we'll,
School was invited, Hector was invited, and I think the G&E was invited, so.
well, I'll follow up with him, but table it.
So he was invited, he did get back to him, but he said he had a doctor's appointment.
No, that's fine.
And, so he
That's
was
fine.
gonna- Just so you know, he didn't.
Okay,
That's fine.
thanks, Ryan. So motion is to table, and we'll try to take it up
Yeah, another time.
September, or
Second.
take it back, all right? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, all right. We're gonna get you that concert early. And the last item on the agenda is make a motion, we take up item 4,
Second.
So moved. Second.
all right? Introduced by Councilor Nelson R. Roman, ordered that the City of Holyoke amend its rules to add public comment as part of all committee meetings, allowing members of the public the opportunity to speak at all committee meetings. It was originally taken up in February of 2018 and tabled.
I remember that meeting, and I do believe, I always thought it was already complied with, that he didn't realize the chairs had the ability to open it up and do it. So when we explained that, he said, okay, I'm fine with that, because you can add, we already allow public comment. We didn't have to change the rules for it. He at the time said he wasn't aware of that. So I thought it was already.
I tend to agree with that.
I
understanding.
remember it correct, if I remember it correctly.
That the chair could,
Well, you can.
Well, we
Our
can-
rules allow us to
to-
open up to the public.
Right.
And go and then,
and
Go
we've
back to
never, in my time back, we've never denied anybody a chance to speak, to my knowledge, so.
no, we haven't.
Linda?
I'd make a motion that it's complied with.
Second.
All in favor?
I,
Aye.
All right.
Because I think this is the conversation that we had.
we did. I remember.
You want to make a motion, we adjourn?
Motion is to adjourn.
Second?
All in favor? All right.